So the session is all about how to learn DevOps in an easy and effective way. Okay, and how to learn it like a professional. So this is the agenda for today. So we'll see how to start our DevOps journey, how to organize our learnings, what to learn, and how to learn it in an order. What are the prerequisites for starting DevOps? The best practices, which which I followed during my journey in DevOps, and I'll also show you the tools to be used, the latest tools to be used, and the rest of the things like the text editors, the SSH tools. Okay, so all the tools that are necessary in DevOps. Okay, so again, it's my opinion. Okay, so I don't expect that it works for everyone. Okay, so it worked in my case and it worked flawlessly, so that's why today I'm presenting, and today I've compiled everything and I'm presenting it. Okay, so yeah, so it works in your case too. Okay, so the first and important thing that we need to do before even starting our DevOps journey, and for that matter any for any technology that you wanted to learn, right? So the first thing is you have to invest in yourself. Okay, so what is investing in yourself, guys? So the first thing which I feel about investing in yourself is investing in your hardware. Okay, so the laptop or the desktop that you choose, right? So that is your first and the major investment. Okay, so the choice of hardware. So it is always recommended that you have a very good configuration laptop. Okay, at least for 5 i5 or i7, Intel series or the Ryzen 5 in the AMD series with at least 8 GB of RAM. The recommended is 16 GB, so that's why I said 8 GB of RAM and 500 GB of SSD with expansion slots. And if there is any dedicated graphics of at least 2 GB, it is good. So the reason why I gave this kind of configuration is, so this kind of configuration will enable us to set up our local environment. Okay, so DevOps is all about tools, right? So we have Kubernetes, Docker, Ansible, Jenkins. So we have to set up a lot of tools initially to learn them. Okay, so although we can set up in the cloud, so but it is always advised to initially practice it in the on-prem. So this is all called as on-prem setup, right? So we can have a single machine, and on top of that we can install VirtualBox. Okay, and then we can have multiple VMs running on top of VirtualBox. Correct. So this serves as an on-prem setup. Okay, for Kubernetes we need on-prem setup. For Ansible, for Jenkins, for everything we need an on-prem setup. Okay, so why local development environment is needed? So the first and foremost thing is cluster setup, because the tools, the all the DevOps tools that we practice or learn these days is, so everything runs on a cluster or inside a cluster. For example, Kubernetes, we can run Kubernetes on a single node. Okay, that means that if you have a normal laptop, we can make it as a Kubernetes master that itself serves as a worker, and then we can practice it. But that is not the correct way of doing it, right? That means that we need to have multiple machines running the Kubernetes. Okay, so in order to set up such kind of clusters, so the normal laptop wouldn't be sufficient. So we need at least high configuration laptop with a good amount of CPU, RAM, and the graphic resources, so that we can set up the cluster and then we can work on it. Okay, because it is all about virtualization, right? So what we are doing here, we are spinning up multiple VMs for setting up the cluster. And also for Ansible, so Ansible is again a master and slave kind of a setup, or the controller and manager nodes kind of a setup, where more than one machine is necessary. Even in this case also we can have VirtualBox and multiple VMs running on top of VirtualBox. Okay, so even for the Jenkins setup, right? Jenkins can also have the master and slave kind of a setup, right? uh, So the master is manage the complete Jenkins, okay, and the workers or slaves will run your Jenkins jobs. So even for this kind of setup, we need a good configuration laptop or a machine. So the reason why I mentioned invest in yourself first is, so in my earlier batches also, when I asked the students about buying this good configuration laptops, many of them didn't even bother to care my words. Okay. Okay, so they thought that they can easily run these softwares in their office laptops or set up them in the cloud environment, but that is not the case, right? Right, so you need to have a personal laptop throughout your entire you know uh, learning curve. Okay, and the second important thing that you need to follow is creating a GitHub account. So you must be asking why you need a GitHub account. So guys, this is not for practicing Git. Okay, this is for something else. So why you need a GitHub account, as soon as you start your DevOps journey is, okay, so you have to create a GitHub account even if you don't know how to use it. Okay, initially, even if you don't know how to use a GitHub account, so you have to go ahead and create one. Okay, so in our sessions we already covered this, right? How to create a GitHub account. So there are certain advantages of creating a GitHub account. So the first advantage is, generally what I do is, when going through some blogs or the tutorials on the web, right? So most of the developers in the tutorials, what they give is they give access to their or links to their repositories. Okay, so they put all the source code that they are going to use it in their tutorials in the GitHub repositories. So if you have your own GitHub account, what you can do is you can immediately fork their repositories. That means that if you find some repository very good, like they have examples of some Linux administration tasks or some Kubernetes YAML files or Ansible playbooks, they have the entire collection. So you have an option to either fork those good repositories so that they'll be copied onto your account, or you can download them as zip. Okay, so you can do both ways. But I advise forking them so that you have everything in your own account. Okay, so that is the important initial use of GitHub account. Okay, so now since if you are new to GitHub or Git world, so initially you can use graphical user interface. So until and unless you get comfortable with CLI. Okay, so maintain public repositories for each DevOps tools you learn. So what is the best practice that you can follow is, let's say you have started with Linux, you wanted to start a DevOps journey, and you realize that you need at least one OS administration. So then you started with Linux. So what I suggest is you make a public repository for that Linux, and then you can put some of the shell scripts or some of the important commands and the how to use them, everything in that public repository, and you can make them available for the public use. Okay, if you feel that you wanted to give back to the community, okay, you can do that, because this gives you more visibility, right? So let's say that if some other developers find your work very interesting, so what they'll do, then they'll in fact will fork your repository, and then in the community, you know uh, you know they'll come to know of you, right? That is how even the opportunities comes also. I know many of my friends who got good opportunities from various companies, just uh, from their GitHub repositories. Okay, because even some of the team leads or the you know developers also refer your GitHub accounts, and sometimes they'll contact you on the email addresses provided in your account. Okay, even opportunities comes in that way also. Okay, and you can limit the sharing the source code. If you find that some source code should not be shared, you can restrict it, right? You can make it as a private repository, and you can avoid sharing it to the general public. Okay, and also you have to update your repos regularly. Okay, it's not that you created the repository but you're not maintaining it. It should not happen like that, right? You should regularly maintain it, okay, by updating the source code, etc. And also you should learn how to write a good markdown file. So have you guys know about what is an markdown file? Yeah, so it is kind of a documentation, right? So we can so why markdown is, you can format them, you know it is like an HTML, like an bold, you can highlight the text, you can insert the images, everything. So it is a readme.md file. If you go to any good GitHub repositories, right, they have the description, they have the usage, the commands, everything mentioned as a good documentation, right? So that is because they have readme.md file in at the root of their repository. Okay, so I think everyone knows, right? Okay, so the final thing is forking the good repositories. So even I can just show you, if you go to my GitHub repository, right? Okay, and yeah, so these are all my repositories. Okay, some of them are locked because those are private, because I've not made them public because I have some changes to be made. But there are some repositories which are already public. Let's say I have one on Kubernetes, which is known as Kubernetes public. Okay, there is this. Let me search. So this is one repository. Okay, so that has 116 folks. Okay, so these are total folks, and so this is what the readme.md file. So if you put something here, so that will be reflected at the bottom. Okay, so I don't have very good readme.md file, at least for this repository. Okay, if you go to other repositories, let's say inside this Kubernetes public, there is a directory, voting app. Okay, so if you see that voting app directory, so again there is a readme.md here inside that. So that is what being shown at the bottom. So for this I have a good readme.md file. If you see here, I put different commands, screenshots or the images. Okay, so this is the documentation. So you need to you know practice how to make a good documentation as well. Okay, so that is markdown file. Okay, so do you have to learn reading, writing, I mean learn how to write a markdown file? Yes. And also, so there are online utilities, so you don't have to learn everything from scratch. Okay, let me give you those links also. So there are couple of links also. Okay, so this is one which I follow. So if you see here, so it is tillinger.io. Okay, I'll just paste the link in the uh, chat box. Okay, so what you can do is you can just follow this website. Okay, so on the left hand side it is the code. Okay, the actual markdown file, and this on the right hand side it is the rendered one. So you can just modify the existing one. On the right hand side you can see the real-time rendering. Okay, so you can simply copy, make the changes over here, and see the output in the real time, and then you can copy the same file, the content from this file, and paste it in your GitHub repository. Okay, so even you can do this. Okay, similar to this there are multiple online markdown tools. Okay, but this is one which I find it very interesting. And if you wanted to know what are the different tags, let's say here single hash, there is a double hash, and then there is an underscore. Okay, so so you can just search for online markdown editor, and then you know again this is another markdown editor. Okay, even this is also very good. Okay, same thing, same output you will get. Okay, understood guys? Guys, you're able to understand, right? So what is the need of GitHub account and why you need it immediately? Hello.
Yes.
Yes, Vikram.
Okay, and now the third thing is you need to master at least one cloud platform. So it doesn't necessarily have to be one. If you are interested, you can go for second cloud platform, but the thing is you should not learn all the cloud platforms at once. Okay, you need to start with one. Okay, learn it perfectly and then go to the other cloud platform. So even I find some of my students and all, they start with AWS, and without learning it completely they'll again switch to Azure or GCP. So it should not happen like this, right? Because no recruiter will ask you the experience on all three clouds. Okay, even if you know AWS, and even if the requirement is on GCP, that is completely fine. Okay, that is completely fine with them. Okay, so whatever the cloud platform that you mention in your resume, so they're going to ask you questions from that only, even if the requirement is on Azure or GCP. Okay, so they start with AWS because AWS is relatively easy. Even I find the graphical user interface or the AWS console, it is very easy to navigate. And the first thing is create a free tier account that gives you free access to many AWS services. Okay, and it is also suggested you set up billing alerts so you don't accidentally overuse some paid services, because sometimes when setting up the tools like Jenkins or SonarQube, you might need instances of higher configuration. So those are not free. Those won't come under free tier account. So in this case, what happens is you will spin up the higher instances, but you will forget to shut down them. Okay, so if you don't set up billing alert, and if you forget to turn off such kind of instances, at the end of the month you will be charged a lot. So it is always suggested to set up billing alerts, and it is always preferred you learn required services in the beginning, like EC2, IAM, and security groups. Okay, once you have all the essential services in your bucket, then you can target DevOps specific services. Okay, so there are hundreds of services in AWS. You don't have to go through all of them, right? So you learn the required ones, and then immediately you switch to DevOps specific services like Elastic Container Services, Elastic Container Registry, or Elastic Kubernetes service, those kind of things. Okay, and also it is highly suggested you make your own documentation. Okay, so although if you are registered for any course online or offline, and the trainers provide you some sort of documentation, but it is always suggested you make a documentation of your own. Okay, like the setup documentation, how to use it. Let's say you have encountered some issue while setting up or while utilizing for or while consuming those services, right? So, and you found the solution somewhere, like you encountered a problem and you found the solution from Stack Overflow, or through a YouTube video. So what you have to do is you have to put it in your documentation. So the next time when you get the same issue, you can go back to your documentation or your bookmarks, and you can immediately refer that. Okay, so it is always suggested you make your own documentation, and you should not rely on uh, the provided ones. Okay, and yeah, so first we'll start with AWS EC2, IAM, and S3. Okay, the first and the foremost service should be EC2. Okay, if so you have to master EC2 instance. Okay, EC2 service. Okay, because there are many features in EC2, so there are many instance types. Okay, so there is altogether a dedicated section for EC2. Okay, so you have to go through that complete EC2 you know documentation to understand what exactly is EC2 and how many features are available in EC2. And some services like AWS Fargate, ECS, ECR, EKS, which are DevOps specific, right? So next thing you should do. Okay, and you always do like this: learn a service a week. That means that this week you learned about ECR. Okay, next week you target for one more service. So don't learn all services in one go. Okay, so you see, let's say that learning some RDS is very easy. Okay, let's say that you can do it in one day. So don't do that. Okay, take your time, practice it well, read the official documentation. So learn a service a week. So within, let's say that within a span of 3 months, you will complete all the major AWS services. Okay, you can take reference of our training material, or you can take the reference of YouTube, or some official blog post, anything. But you target a service a week, that's it. Okay, not more than that, or not lesser than that. Okay, and always make sure that you check the official documentation at least once. Okay, and guys, you already know that we have an YouTube channel, and we already have some free AWS tutorials. So this is our link to our YouTube channel, or else you can scan this QR, so it will display all the AWS playlist. Okay, and then so there are many DevOps tools. Okay, so we have on the containerization, on the monitoring side, on the security side, on the testing side. Okay, on the deployment side, on the delivery side, there are multiple DevOps tools. Okay, practically there are hundreds of them. So do you have to learn all of them initially? No, you don't have to learn all of them. Okay, so you should not be like there are many DevOps tools, and you should not be worrying about learning all of them, because no company will require all of them. Okay, if you see, in my current organization, we are not using more than let's say 10 DevOps tools. Okay, so don't waste your time learning everything, because it is absolutely not needed. Okay, probably you'll be getting tasks on 2 or 3 DevOps tools only. So learning everything will simply waste your time. Okay, so instead of learning everything, you master a single DevOps tool. Okay, so that should be your motto. Okay, so so don't learn everything at once, because it doesn't make any sense. Don't rush into learning all DevOps tools once. Start with the ones that really make a difference. Okay, so the first thing that we generally do is we need to have knowledge of an OS administration, right? So we will obviously the choice of our OS is Linux, because all servers run Linux. So Linux administration should be our prime concern. Okay, and then what all the other tools we learned? Git, because we need to version control our source code, or for contributing to the software development, everything we need Git. And then we can target for a cloud, which is obviously we're talking about AWS. And then we can target containerization tools like Docker and Kubernetes. Okay, so these are sufficient initially. Okay, you don't have to initially worry about Ansible, Terraform, or anything, right? So having knowledge of Linux, Git, Docker, Kubernetes, and one programming language like Python, they are sufficient. Okay, to start your DevOps journey. Okay, so take a tool and master it. So it is always good to know the alternatives, at least theoretically. Let's say you have Docker, right? So there are many alternatives to the Docker also. We have RKT, we have Podman. Okay, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah,
Mm.
Bikram.
Yeah, so it is good to know the alternatives at least theoretically. So you don't have to know, and you don't have to have practical experience. At least know their names. Okay, let's say you are using Jenkins. Okay, so it is good to know the other tools that you have in the same category, right? So be productive, stick to what you know, and learn a bit of something new every day. Okay, don't feel ashamed that you're missing something. Learn it eventually. Okay, so let's say you started with Docker, then you didn't learn Docker Swarm. So it is not something if you should be ashamed of, right? Because you learned a better orchestration tool, Kubernetes. Okay, so still if you need to learn Docker Swarm, so learn it eventually. Okay, don't stagnate. So take small steps, enhance what you already know, and master it. Okay, so every day Docker comes up with the latest features, right? Even in the Kubernetes. Okay, you'll have lot of new features coming, new features being added with every release. So take your time going through the official documentation, and then learn the missing ones. Okay, so don't get overwhelmed yourself. So learn what you need to know. Okay, okay, new things always comes up, right? Okay, in the latest the thing is Argo CD. Okay, so you don't have to learn it immediately. Okay, and some things will come and go. Okay, some things will get traction, some will not get. Okay, so you don't have to learn each and everything that comes latest in the market, but it is always good to know what are the latest the DevOps tools coming in the market. Okay, but it doesn't mean that you have to learn it immediately, because so what happens after you learn it and you cannot implement in the real time? It is simply waste of your time, right? Let's say Terraform is there in your current organization, you're not using it. Okay, but you learned it. Okay, so what happens, guys, in that case? So if you don't have any practical uses of that tool, it is of complete waste, right? Because you learn it, eventually you'll forget it without if you don't practice it. Okay, so don't do that. So understand what are the market requirements, go through some of the JDs, understand what are the tools that are you know high on demand, in demand, so then you learn them first. Okay, and now for the first for learning anything is you have to maintain your own documentation. Okay, so as I said, even the trainers or the if you're signing up for some courses, so they'll provide their documentation, right? The learning materials, everything they'll provide, but it is always good to have your own documentation. Okay, so always maintain your own version of tool documentation. Okay, so towards the end of this session, I'll show you how I maintain my own documentation, what is the folder structure I maintain, where I store them. Okay, do I version control them? Okay, so I'm going to show you everything. So update your documentation with the latest information by updates. Okay, let's say you know um, on job role, okay, I came across a certain topic. Let's say uh, before after learning Docker, I came across a latest Docker command known as Docker load and save. Okay, so what I did is, after learning Docker load and save, I immediately updated my documentation. Okay, so I did not wait even a single day. So I on the same day itself I updated my documentation. Okay, so this is how you should also do it. Okay, you should also include the setup instructions and important reference link. Let's say you learned this Docker from somewhere, from a blog post, or from or you did a course from some online site, right? So you should have reference to all those links in your documentation. Okay, let's say you run into some errors while setting up, or while utilizing or while consuming that tool. Okay, and you found that solution online. Okay, so what you should do is, you should bookmark that page for future reference. Or what you can do is, you can simply copy the error that you encountered, and also the solution that you found for that error. So everything should be in documentation. Okay, it is not that the documentation should only have whatever you learn. So the real time experiences, the troubles, the issues you faced in your you know in the real time also, you should document them. Okay, so the next thing is, learn at least one programming language. Okay, so why one programming language is, a DevOps engineer needs to know at least one programming language. Okay, probably for configuration automation or for automation. Okay, so example like Bash, PowerShell, Python, or Go. Okay, so for becoming a very good DevOps engineer, you need to know at least one programming language. Even in our training, we are covering Python and Bash. Okay, so to become more qualified, you can learn one of the general purpose programming language. Okay, so for instance, Go is a general purpose programming language. So the reason why I mentioned Go here is, okay, so Go is a very famous programming language by Google, and almost all DevOps tools nowadays are written in Go. Okay, so if you wanted to learn in depth of any such tool, let's say Kubernetes. Okay, so you learned Kubernetes, you understood how Kubernetes works from externally. But if you wanted to go to the source code and see internally how the scheduler is working, how API server is working. Okay, so you have to know Go to understand the source code, because the complete Kubernetes is written in Go language, or GoLang. Okay, so once you learn Python and Bash scripting, and still you feel that you have, spare time, okay, then the best choice is to go for learning Go language. Okay, so you can use Go, for data processing. You can use Go to create your own Kubernetes operators. So there are thousands of use cases in Go. Understood, guys? Why Go is needed? Because almost every DevOps tool, is written in Go. Okay, so now, so what should be the prime choice? Okay, so obviously it is Python. Okay, because it is one of the in-demand languages, of this 2021. Okay, and this is used for automation, back-end development. Even you can have front-end applications written in Python. Okay, those are called Flask-based applications or Django-based applications. And we all know that Python is the core language for data science. Okay, and the important advantage with Python is, so it has the extensive library support. That means that almost for every use case, right, we have a Python library or module built. Okay, let's say that you wanted to programmatically access AWS resources, so we have Boto 3 Python library. And let's say that you wanted to talk to Kubernetes API server through Python program, so we have the Kubernetes Python client library. Okay, even you have a Kubernetes Go client library. Okay, so Go is as popular as Python, but the only difference is Python is an interpreter based language, Go is an compiler based language. Okay, so but Go is one of the top choice of the developers these days, because as I said, almost all developer tools or DevOps tools are written in Go, including the famous Kubernetes. Okay, so if you go to Kubernetes official GitHub project, so you can see that all the entire source code is written in Go language. Okay, so that is how popular Go is. So we should learn Python and Bash scripting, and if you still have time, probably 2 or 3 years down the line, so then you can also target Go language. Okay, now system administration. Okay, so the administration of Linux OS is among the primary skills employees expect from their potential DevOps engineers these days. Okay, so even if you get a call from HR, so they'll immediately ask you about your Linux administration experience also, because this is the one of the primary requirements, right? Okay, so it doesn't mean that you should have Linux, you should be an admin. Okay, for this, at least you should have the administration skills. Okay, let's say the administration skills like user account management. That means that adding or removing users, adding them to a group, permissions management. Okay, backup and restore, hardware setup and troubleshooting, configuring networks and firewalls. Okay, monitoring system performances, patching the operating system or the applications, installing packages using or apt package managers, disk management, documenting whatever you do in the internal wiki or the Confluence pages. These are all day-to-day activities of Linux administrators, right? So you should know at least some of these. Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be everything. At least you should know how to install packages, how to use some of the monitoring tools like top ps, hardware setup and troubleshooting. How do you check logs, how do you backup and restore, copy utilities, user management, disk management. So these are the things that you generally have to know. Okay, so once you know Linux, okay, once you know Git, one programming language, the other thing is container orchestration. So this is an important DevOps tool, right? Container orchestration. Okay, so the famous ones that we currently know are Docker and Kubernetes, right? So, but what is container orchestration? So we already seen what is container orchestration in our Docker Swarm section. So it is all about managing the life cycle of a container, right? Like starting it, stopping it, restarting it, relocating it. Okay, So relocating it in the sense, if you have multiple hosts, in the case of Docker Swarm, right, inside Docker Swarm we'll have multiple host machines. Okay, some acting like a master, some acting like a worker nodes, right? So we can move the container from one node to another node, right, guys? Guys,
Yeah.
Vikram, right?
yeah, so let's say that we used two commands. So one is setting a node to drain, and setting a node to active. So setting a node to drain in the sense, you remove all the containers from that node and you move them somewhere. Then you patch that node or restart that node. You do whatever administration work you wanted to do on that node, and then you active that node. Okay, so that it will receive the containers next time when someone deploys a service or a stack. Okay, so container orchestration is all about automating the deployment part, management, scaling, networking of containers. Okay, so this is all about container orchestration. So there are many container orchestration tools. Okay, so the famous one is Kubernetes. We also have Docker Swarm, Apache Mesos also. Okay, and we also have many from the other vendors as well. Okay, so now once you know all these things, right, so from where you can get extra information, right? So it is from social publishing platforms. Okay, so this is the least area that people will explore. Okay, but this is the, what I feel is, this is from where you can learn most of your DevOps knowledge. Okay, so what is social publishing, what are social publishing platforms? Okay, so gone are the days when we just use social platform just for connecting with our loved ones. Okay, so those days are gone. So now we use them, for our, learning needs. Let's say Facebook groups. Okay, so there are many Facebook groups on DevOps, Docker, Kubernetes, Jenkins. So what you do is you go to those groups, you join those groups. Let's say you run into any issues, right, and you're having issues finding the solutions. Okay, so what you can do is you can go to the Facebook groups and you just post your question. Okay, so if you are a member of an active group, or let's say if you're a member, uh, who member of a group whose member count is more than 20,000, right, you'll immediately get a response probably within the next 1 hour, or maybe in some cases within the next few minutes also you'll get a response to your queries. Okay, so then we have Medium articles, we have dev.do articles, we have YouTube channels, GitHub repositories, and there are many community blogs, guys. Let's say you wanted to install something, or if you wanted to, you know write a Ansible playbook, okay, to deploy some web server or something. So what I feel is, there are very good community blogs available for such kind of tasks. So the famous ones are from Medium, dev.to, and there are pretty good ones from DigitalOcean as well. Okay, even DigitalOcean releases complete free books these days. Even they have for Docker, they have for Kubernetes. Okay, I'll also share them in my training. Okay, and also LinkedIn. Okay, sometimes you can also post in LinkedIn, but this is a last choice. Okay, so we also have a Facebook group. So most of you are aware of this. So we have close to 1,000 members. Okay, so there are absolutely zero advertisements. Okay, zero spams. Okay, so it's completely pure content, and the content is being uploaded only by me. Okay, so I'll also show you that. So now if you open Facebook and then search for any groups, like you search for DevOps, you search for keywords. Okay, then you'll get whole list of groups. So then what you have to do is you have to click on that group. Okay, I'll show you in the real, how that works after the end of this presentation. Okay, and we also have a group, DevOps Made Easy. There are close to 1,000 members. Okay, so the latest, the tutorials or any important YouTube videos that I generally upload, I'll share it in my group. Okay, so and this is the link to my group. And also we have Medium. Okay, so this is the first thing, okay, you should do today. Okay, you go to the Medium, you sign up, and then you start liking DevOps related, okay, blocks. Okay, so once you start liking DevOps related blogs, what happens is every morning you get an email with at least top 5 blogs on DevOps. Okay, and those are all current trending tools, currently trending deployments, updates, upcoming news, everything. Okay, so this is the first thing you should do. Go to Medium, sign up for account, and start learning or going through some blogs. Search Docker, search Kubernetes, search Git. Okay, so I do this every now and then. Every morning I wake up, I open my Gmail, I'll go through the top 5 links. Okay, and also dev.to. Okay, even this is one of the important social blogging platform. Even you'll get a plenty of DevOps resources. Okay, so this is where from where you get GitHub resources also. Okay, once you open a specific blog post, right, so there the developer will mention a link to his GitHub repository. So what you can do, you can just clone that repository, or just download that source code, and you have to take the backup. Okay, so I'll also show you how I do that at the end of this session. Okay, and then, so you have to bookmark important sites and logs. Okay, so how do I do that? Is it is here. So let's say this is my complete bookmarks. If you see here, so I arranged everything according to tools. So I have for Jenkins, Docker, Kubernetes, Ansible, Git, Helm, AWS. So it doesn't mean that I know all these tools, right? Okay, so I came across a very good blog post on, let's say, Flutter. So Flutter is an app development platform by Google. Okay, so I learned Flutter long back, so I have a folder for that that has important blog posts or the tutorial links, everything. Okay, even for C language, for Go language. So I have dedicated bookmarks. Okay, and the dedicated folders for each tool. So it is not like I have bookmarked everything you know without putting them under a folder. If you do like that, what happens is eventually all will get mixed up, and it is not good. Let's say that inside Helm. So I some one day, what happened is, so I was looking for a tutorial on Helm. Okay, so what happened is, instead of searching for that Helm tutorial in Google again, what I did is, I went to this the folder, and then immediately I visited that page. Okay, so this is the advantage of putting everything under a folder. Okay, so you don't have to even search it next time, because what happens is, let's say you know today I searched for a topic using a different search string. Okay, so the next time I may not be using the same search string, right? This time my search string might be completely different, and the results will be completely different. Okay, so in that case you won't be finding the required one, right? So if you bookmark them, so what happens is, you can go back to your bookmarks and immediately go to that page. Okay, so now let's say that you have not opted for any offline courses, right? Okay, so in that case, what I suggest is, you prefer self-paced courses initially. Okay, so why I prefer self-paced courses is, okay, they have index. Okay, they have contents. Okay, so what does this index and contents do is, so they'll give you step by step approach. So they'll show you what to learn first, how to proceed with that tool, what are the commands you should learn, what are the exercises you should follow. So but what happens is, if you go through some random blocks, right? Let's say you got an assignment on Docker, then you immediately started learning some random learning from some random blocks. So it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so instead what I suggest is, you immediately buy a self-paced course, go through the index, go through each and every video, complete that self-paced course, probably like 2 hours or 3 hours course. Then you start reading some blogs for extra information. Okay, so that is my advice. Okay, so live trainings are not for everyone. Okay, so let's say that since you opted for live trainings, that is good. Okay, but live trainings are not for everyone, right? Some of you may not be able to follow the live training ones. Okay, then the best advice is, start the self-paced ones. Okay, invest in good online courses. Okay, the online courses in the sense, not paying $300 for a course. So if you look at Udemy, okay, so uh, the each course is less than $10. Okay, if you are converting in Indian currency, it is less than 500 INR. Okay, but the contents which they offer, it is worth more than 20,000, guys. Okay, so invest in good online courses from Udemy because they have best selection of online courses, and one of my favorite is Code Cloud. Okay, so this Code Cloud website offers all DevOps related courses, and you can opt for 6 month subscription or an yearly subscription or a monthly subscription. Okay, I think these days they are running 50% off site wide on all their courses. And 8 Cloud Guru is the next one of my favorite cloud platform, sorry, the online learning platform. Okay, first I'll start with Udemy. Okay, if I find that one of the tool is not available with Code Cloud, what I'll do is I'll look for that course in Udemy. So I'll immediately buy it. I'll go through the their contents. Okay, before buying, what I'll do is I'll look through the course content, and I'll check the demo videos first. Okay, then I'd immediately buy it. Then I'll go through that complete videos. Okay, so I'll complete that course, and then I'll go through all the random blogs that I come across Medium, or blogs from some other sites, etc. Okay, so my best suggestion is you avoid reading random blogs initially. Okay, so until and unless you're clear about the contents in a tool, like the contents in DevOps or a tool like Docker, you avoid reading random blogs. Okay, and I also have a link to. Okay, so I'll paste this link in the chat section. Okay, so this is from dev.to. So they have mentioned all the top DevOps blogs. Okay, so let's say you have from Atlassian. Okay, so Atlassian, Zira, Confluence. You guys are aware of this, right? Atlassian. Okay, so they have a huge list of DevOps tools. Okay, even they have very good DevOps blogs. If you visit their site, okay, so here they have very good blogs. Okay, and then the other blogs from DevOps Cube, DevOps.com. Okay, D's on DevOps, and this one Stackify, the DevOps guys. Okay, so there are many DevOps blogs which are very popular. Okay, so you can always whenever you're free, you can go through their blog posts as well. Okay, and then yeah, so this is about Code Cloud, guys. So if you see their website, so they have courses only on the DevOps. Okay, and a Cloud Guru, they are into everything. So they are into DevOps, they are into cloud. Okay, they are into programming. So all those courses you will get. So even they have yearly subscriptions, and even these guys have the yearly subscriptions. So if you are interested, you can opt for yearly subscription, so that you'll pay less, because probably you'll be paying at least 50% lesser subscription in price when compared to the monthly subscriptions. Okay, so the last thing is, okay, using the latest tools. Okay, so don't stick with putty or the older DevOps utilities. Okay, so I'm not saying that you should not use them. So okay, they're absolutely gold, I know that, but always try to make sure that you are using the latest ones. Okay, like MOBA Extreme, so they have SSH support, SFTP support. They have VNC support, so they support everything. Okay, so we have VS Code, so they have a huge list of the extensions available, so you can use it for your text documents, JSONs, YAMLs, writing the Docker files, writing your Python files, writing the Docker Compose, Kubernetes, Helm. They have huge list of extensions, and VS Code can be your only IDE that is necessary for your entire DevOps uh, you know uh, learning. Okay, so you can just download VS Code, and then you can let's say if you feel that some extension is needed, you can just go ahead and install that extension. Okay, so VS Code is obviously the top choice among all the DevOps engineers. And MobiXterm, even we had seen how MobiXterm can be really helpful for SSH into different servers, right? Okay, you can store the sessions. And the final choice, the which I personally like, is Tabby. Okay, so this is a terminal, a CLI. Okay, so I'll show you what is Tabby in some time. Okay, this is similarly like your CLI, but it offers much more benefits over your traditional CLI or terminal in Linux. Okay, so now the last thing is you using cloud storage. So your learnings are very valuable, right guys? So you cannot just store them locally forever on a single machine. Okay, so your machine might crash any point of time, because what you are doing to your machine is you are running multiple VMs. Playing with your PC, right? It's like, you know you're putting it to best use. So in that, while doing so, probably you might download some malware from internet. Anything could happen to your machine, right? So you should not store all your important documents or your important source code, or configuration files, the whatever the things that you learn and practice in your DevOps journey, right? You should not put them on a single machine. Okay, so I advise you back up all your files and the documents to your cloud drive. So the first advantage is you don't lose them. And the second advantage is you can access them anywhere. Let's say you wanted to access some configuration file that you practiced it, and you stored it in probably OneDrive or Google Drive or Mega or iCloud Drive, any drive. So then immediately you can open up in your office laptop, if your office laptop allows it. Then you can immediately go through your documentation, right? So that is the advantage of having and store a cloud storage and storing all your tools and the configuration files there. Okay, and we all know that you should not back up your documentation, everything in Git, right? So Git is only for source code, but for the rest of the documents like PDF, Word documents, everything, so we should rely on our cloud storages. Okay, so that's it guys. So I'll close the this presentation with a small quote. So a day when you don't learn something new is a day wasted. Okay, so this is what I feel. So I make sure that I learn about at least one latest DevOps tool. Okay, so I don't practice them. I will not do hands on, but I'll know at least what is the latest tool that is popular in the market. So I'll go through the Medium articles every day. Okay, and I'll just go through them. So let's say if I come across a very good DevOps tool, okay, then immediately I'll go to their GitHub page. I'll read their readme.md file to understand better what DevOps tool is all about, and how I can use it in my DevOps tool chain. Okay, what problem it solves, and how will I use it in my day-to-day activities. Okay, so that is how I learned DevOps, and that is how I've been learning DevOps, and that is how I've been successful in DevOps. Okay, so as promised, so what I'll do is I'll quickly show you. Okay, so the first thing is the bookmarks. So these are all my bookmarks. So some have company related, some will have so these are all the bookmarks. If you see, some of them are from official documentation, some of them are YouTube. Okay, so this is how I maintain my bookmarks. And so I also maintain my GitHub repositories. Okay, let's say for this YouTube series, so I maintain a separate GitHub repository. So whatever things I wanted to share, okay, so I can simply put it here, because so I'm always about sharing or giving back to the community. Okay, so if you are learning something from the community, so it is always better to give back to the community in the form of some tutorials, or let's say you solved an issue and you wanted to share it to the community. You can simply put it in your GitHub page, and you can share it in your Facebook community or anywhere, right? You can also start writing Medium blogs. Okay, so once you're part of a Facebook group, right, you can also post something in those Facebook groups. Okay, now let's go back to Facebook groups. Okay, so how do you search for a Facebook group is you can just go here. Okay, or else you can click the group sections over here, and you can search for groups here. So you can just do Kubernetes. Okay, and then see here, these are all Kubernetes related groups. You can click on a single group, and then you can click on join. So you can post your queries here. Okay, and let's say you wanted to share something to the community also, you can do it here. Okay, so this is how you should use Facebook group. Then you have Medium. Okay, so you can just sign in or sign up for Medium, and then you can search for various stories. Okay, so you can also set your preferences that you want to receive notifications only from the data science, or there are different topics. You have something on the DevOps as well. Okay, so let's say uh, this is about health industry. This is programming. See here, data science. Okay, let's say software engineering. So inside software engineering, you can go to the subcategories, and then you can select DevOps. Okay, so there are plenty of categories. Okay, even dev.to. Okay, see here, they have very very good blogs. Okay. See here, Docker using an IPv6, Docker, Kubernetes. So you'll get all these blocks, container runtime. Okay, and then the last thing which I wanted to show is Tabby. Okay, so I'm just opening the terminal. So this is Tabby. So the earlier it was Terminus. Okay, so I didn't update it from then, so now it is changed to Tabby. So what I can have here is I can have multiple tabs here. Okay, I can run multiple commands parallelly here. Okay, I can also start SSH sessions. I can have Git Bash. I can have PowerShell as the profile, CMD as the profile. So let's say if I switch to Bash, okay, I can do LS. All those Linux utilities will work. Okay, so I can have Linux commands running over Windows. Okay, so if you are in normal CMD profile, so obviously your LS won't work. Okay, LS is not detected. But if you are using the Git Bash profile, so your LS command will work. So if you are used to Linux, so what I advise is you download Tabby. You can also do SSH, right? So all the CLI commands that you run, you can run from Tabby. You can have multiple tabs parallelly running. Okay, you can also have some sessions stored. Okay, you can create your own custom profiles. And if you go to sessions settings over here, you have something known as SSH, right? So now what happens is you can add some SSH connection here. So you can give it a name, host, port, username, password in the form of password key. So then that session will be stored. Okay, so let's say that I'm just creating a session. So AWS master, this is the name for that session. I want to put it under AWS group. Okay, host, I'm giving a random host ID. I mean the IP address, port. Okay, password, username is root. Password, I'm giving it as a root. Okay, then I'll save. So once I saved it, what I can do is, if I want to go to connect to that VM, so I can click on this here, and uh, one second guys, why it is not showing here? Or else I can just go here, SSH. Okay, I think I didn't update it properly. Okay, so what happens is, if you have SSH sessions, right? So immediately in this drop down, you'll get the session name. So if you click on that session, automatically it will SSH into your AWS instance. Okay, so this is one. And the last thing that I wanted to show you is, okay, how you should organize your local, the folder structure. So for whatever for the DevOps tools that you learn. Okay, so So if you see here, I have DevOps folder, and these are all my DevOps related, material. Okay, whatever I learn, whatever I teach. So if you see any of these folders, right, every folder will look similar. Okay, let's say if you see Docker, right. So now I maintain a common folder structure in all the what do you say, for all the DevOps tools. The first thing is the images, whatever images I wanted to, which I downloaded for that tool, I'll put it here. So the next thing is the resources. Okay, inside the resources I'll have different folders again. Okay, so the resources from Udemy, or resources from Code Cloud, or resources from Git. Okay, all these things will go into this folder, and the templates will have all the source codes, like the templates, the Python programs, depending upon the tool, I'll put everything there. And if I have any setup related exe files, I'll put them either in the tools or softwares. And at the outside I'll have the Word document presentations, important links, important commands like the Kubernetes commands. Okay, if you see, I listed them in a single file. So this is how I maintain it. Even if you see Helm, okay, see here, images, resources, templates, and the other materials. Even in case of Docker, okay, I have resources, templates. Okay, so these are the things I do, and everything is being backed up into Google Drive, guys. Okay, if you see here, everything is being synced to my Google Drive, sorry, OneDrive, so that accidentally I won't lose everything, even if my system crashes. Okay, yeah, so this is all about how to learn DevOps like a pro, how I learned it, and yeah, how, this is what I advise everyone to follow.